Well, good morning from Chicago. I'd like to welcome you to this special Parliament of the World's Religions webinar today on December 23rd, just days before Christmas, 5 Steps to Stop Hate at the Holidays. My name is Molly Horan, and I am Director of Communications here at the Parliament. In just a moment, I'll introduce you to our morning's presenters who are geared up and ready to talk with you about what's going on not just here these days in the United States, but to a great extent in other nations around the world where any minorities are being unfairly profiled and discriminated against. Here in the United States, we are seeing a surge in Islamophobic hate speech and violence. Our presenters today hope to inspire you to join us in responding thoughtfully, compassionately, and effectively in dealing with violence against not only just Muslims, but especially Muslim women and others generalized and marginalized in ways which violate the fundamentals of every faith we practice. Our presenters are so committed to this cause that I suspect they will have more than just 5 strategies to share, but I know they will keep to a good time to allow us to hold a question and answer session at the end. I encourage you to use the chat icon to send questions, and I will be working to pick some and share at appropriate times. We will read your questions if selected and unmute you, but also ask that you send your questions or comments to us via email at the end of the session. I have the great pleasure now to introduce you to our interim executive director. Larry Greenfield is the executive minister of the American Baptist Churches of Metro Chicago, a regional judiciary of the American Baptist Churches USA, and the theologian in residence for the Community Renewal Society, a progressive, faith-based organization in Chicago that works to eliminate race and class barriers and advocates for social and economic justice. He received his PhD from the University of Chicago Divinity School, where he subsequently taught and served as Dean of Students. Later, he served as president of Colgate Rochester Divinity School in Rochester, New York. We're so pleased to have Larry here. Take it away.
Well, wonderful in more than one way, I want to suggest. Yesterday, the staff and Chicago-based trustees of the Parliament gathered together for a year-end party, but also a holiday party, a period of celebration for what's been accomplished with the Parliament of the World Religions this year, especially our gathering in Salt Lake City, where one of the major themes was addressing the issue of hate and hate speech, of war and violence. But as a part of that party, along with all the eating and sharing of gifts and frivolity, some members of the staff looked it up to see how many religious traditions have celebrations at this time of the year. And somewhat to my surprise, and I think basically the surprise of everyone in the room, we learned that I think it was from November 15 through January 15, the religious traditions of the world, 25 celebrations, special religious celebrations during this 1-month period. That's a wonderful time of the year, obviously, when not just the religious traditions, Christian, Judaism, celebrate major festivals, but so many other religious traditions are celebrating at this time of year. It's a wonderful time of year. And it's a wonderful time not just in terms of the joy, but also it's a wonderful time in terms of the opportunity we have to express the key teachings, the key affirmations, the key truths of virtually every one of these different religious traditions. And central to that is that hate must be overcome and love must be the victor. It's a wonderful opportunity to speak that word, to remember that truth, to give witness to that reality. I have a friend here in Chicago who reminds me often that peace is not a natural state. Well, that goes along with my own faith tradition of that we live in a fallen world, and that in that fallen world, the default position isn't always what is best about our humanity or best about our creation. Rather, that we find ourselves in a situation in which peacemaking really does take an effort. Makes an effort. You have to make an effort to achieve peace. Something has to be disciplined in oneself to be a peacemaker or to be an anti-hater. And I think that's important to remember for all of our traditions, and to recognize that we can be that love promoter, that peacemaker, that anti-hater at this wonderful time of the year. It's a wonderful occasion. It's a wonderful time to make that kind of affirmation and give witness to it. It's a wonderful time, too, in that as these traditions gather, we have the opportunity to speak that word of peacemaking to a group that sometimes doesn't show up on the sacred day of the week. So we have a kind of captive audience to make our case that while love may not be the natural condition of the world, that hate too often is the default position, that out of our religious traditions we have the energy, the truth, the power to speak and give witness to a different reality, the true reality of love overcoming hate. So I just want to say by way of introduction that it's a wonderful time of the year in terms of joy, but it's also a wonderful time of the year in terms of an opportunity to give witness to something that is central to all of our traditions about love being, in a sense, not only more central but more powerful than hate. I want to move to some fives, that is 5 suggestions, hints, opportunities in which I think we can make use of this wonderful time of the year. Let me speak first to those on the webinar who are clergy, because for us who are clergy, it is a wonderful time to, with our audiences before us, to say something central about the central truths of our various faiths. Obviously, it's an opportunity to say that, not just say, but to emphasize how love really is central. To overcoming hate really is central to what we affirm during this wonderful time of the year. And it isn't just expressing love, it's to say, in some sense, that the opposite of this is of this love is hate. And that if we need empirical evidence that there is hate in the world, we've got plenty of it around us in these days. Certainly we know that in this country, where in an election cycle now, politicians are using fear and the way fear fuels hate, use that for their own benefit, for their own political advantage. We have the occasion to challenge that during our services of celebration during this time. That seems to me means that we need to pick up that theme in our homilies, in our sermons, whether that be in the regular portion of the service or when we do our children's sermons, children's homilies. that we need to not just state the truth about love, overcoming hate, but we tell the stories. We repeat the narratives so that it becomes clear in terms of a dramatic expression of this major theme of our faith traditions. I think of, for example, I as a Christian think of this in terms of the story of the Holy Family, of the kind of shunning that took place because they didn't seem to be the regular folks in Bethlehem, the visitors, the strangers, the foreigners to Bethlehem, and shunned and shunted off to a barn. So that maybe that story can be a way of talking about refugees who are being shunned and shunted off, or to minority groups who are being shunned and shunted off. That is to use the narratives of our tradition to make the point, not just the philosophical or theological point, but the essential dramatic point of what the divine reality is engaged in the world. That is accepting what others reject, those who others reject. So in our sermons and our homilies, it's important, I think, to base our sermons and homilies on those stories. But we also have the opportunity, especially in 2015, given what we're facing in the United States and in other parts of the world, to develop liturgies, to litanies that pick up this theme, that allow people not just to be talked to, but to give them a language on this theme. So the creative way in which litanies and liturgies can be developed that allow people to give expression to this themselves. In my own tradition, and I think in many traditions now, during a worship service, there is a time in which people can also speak to their joys and their concerns. In fact, in my tradition, it's often in the service, a period of expression of joys and concerns. And oftentimes, those get pretty personal about Aunt Rose and Uncle Joe, some malady that they're facing, or a family facing a tragedy, all of which are appropriate for that period of the worship service. But oftentimes, what doesn't get said is the concerns about the public expressions of hate speech. So that maybe as a religious leader or as a layperson, we make a point in that period of the service of saying something about the disease that is rampant in our culture, that disease of hate, and asking for prayers to overcome that hate, or to lift up a joy of a witness to expressions of love that one has seen, and to give thanks for people who have the courage to stand up and be counted on behalf of peace and love and harmony and reconciliation. I learned in my own pastoral experience that not everybody is audio oriented. Yeah, that is, not everybody is ear oriented. So a fourth suggestion is to be sure that in the written word that goes out to a congregation, there is this theme as well, that people who are print oriented also receive this message about the central teachings of their traditions. So those are some of the I think there are 5 of them that I jotted down. Let me turn to what some of the things we all can do, and I'm not going to limit myself to 5. Our staff here at the Parliament has gone through this exercise now a couple of times. That is, how do we find ways of being explicit in overcoming hate and affirming love? And just last night, a colleague of mine, a Methodist colleague of mine, shared something in an email that he had received from a Muslim friend and colleague with some specific suggestions of how we as non-Muslims can act in support of our colleagues, our brothers and sisters who are of the Islamic faith. One was, if you see a Muslim or someone who might be identified as a Muslim and they're being harassed, stop, intervene into that, and to express your solidarity with the person who's being harassed. Now that takes courage, and here at the Parliament we're developing a program we call it a bystander program. I don't think it's novel to us, but it is to say, if you're a bystander, don't be a bystander who does nothing. Be a bystander who is active and intervening and expressing solidarity with the person who's being harassed. Sometimes a second suggestion is, when you see someone who is maybe in this case Muslim, to take the initiative to say, peace be with you. That is not just a liturgical thing in which some of us say in the middle of a worship service, peace be with you and unto you also. But in public spaces, to express that, to give verbal presence of one's solidarity and expression of friendship with the stranger, with the one who may feel all too alone on that bus or that train or on that street corner. Another suggestion was, if you have a neighbor, if you have neighbors who are Muslim, keep an eye out for them. Be their watch folk, and in a sense, their protector. And in this list that my colleague gave me, if you're walking your kids home from the bus, invite their kids to walk with yours. A visible way of showing support. And in that same vein, talk to your kids. Don't assume that even though they may know that you hold these deeply held beliefs that lead to certain kinds of action, spend some time with those children. I think it's important as well that those of us who are not the foreigner, not the stranger, not the minority, have the courage, have the willpower to call out hate speech when we hear it, and wherever we hear it, whether that's in a personal interaction or whether it's something we see on television or hear on the radio. Don't assume, we can't assume that others or that our silence can be taken for granted of opposing such hate speech, but that we are visible. Let me say that we have opportunities during this wonderful time of year to initiate ourselves through social media, through Facebook, through other forms of social media, to take the initiative to state our own beliefs and our own commitments. I guess for me it's summed up in the thought that this is a wonderful time of the year to be a witness to the central, for many of us, the central teaching of our religious tradition. To be a witness to love being that force that is stronger than hate, despite what's going on politically and socially and culturally in the United States and in various other countries. This is the opportunity to be a witness for what we deeply believe. And in our expression, not only in speech, but through our action, and being that witness, to be a transforming presence in a world that needs to overcome hate and become a community of love, a beloved community. Those are my thoughts at this point.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. I just want to commend Dr. Larry Greenfield on connecting so well with us as he sits in a room by himself doing this first webinar, hopefully one of many to come. I think all the strategies that you've mentioned really call to us as individuals to be strong at this time, and that's what we hope to inspire in you. I'm going to put some questions here at the end after our next speaker, Imam Malik Mujahid. One question in particular that came up refers to how we can actually respond to people who are showing some hateful speech, who get caught up in the emotion of the confrontation and feel so passionately the love they feel for their neighbor, but don't want to lose themselves in the anger. So that's a matter of discussion that I want to hold on to till the end. But I do want to introduce you now to Malik Mujahid, our illustrious chair. He will be chairing the parliament now for just another couple of days after several years of incredible service. He has been selected 4 times as one of the 500 most influential Muslims in the world. And I'll tell you a little bit about why that is. Imam Mujahid is among the original signatories of the 1993 Parliament Declaration towards a Global Ethic. As a leader in the interfaith movement, he has addressed the parliaments in Cape Town, Barcelona, Melbourne, and Salt Lake City this year. He is the founding president of Sound Vision, a public relations not-for-profit of Muslims which produces Chicago's daily Radio Islam on WCEV 1450 AM in the United States, in addition to documentaries. He also leads Muslim Peace Coalition USA. One of the things he's most involved in at this moment is the Burma Task Force USA, where he is chair. It is a coalition of 19 organizations committed to stopping the genocide of Rohingyas in Burma. As the national coordinator of Bosnia Task Force USA, he successfully led efforts in collaboration with the National Organization of Women to declare rape a war crime, and I thank you for that. Imam Mujahid has conceived and led several successful public policy initiatives culminating in legislation, including health care for all children in the state of Illinois. He has authored more than 400 articles, and boy do I know, I've read many of them, on interfaith, Islamic living, domestic violence and public policy, Islamophobia, and Islam-West relations. This current crisis in the United States and around the world has gripped his attention, and he has a lot to share with us today. I'd like to welcome Imam Malik Mujahid. Are you there, Malik?
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Molly, and thank you, Larry, for organizing this webinar, and thank all of you for joining it. I know it's a holiday season, busy time, but you're thoughtful people and you're worried about what's happening in the world, and probably you wanted to hear what suggestions do we have. So working together for harmony and peace, that's what interfaith movement is all about. And Parliament of the World's Religions think of interfaith movement, essentially neighbors working with neighbors to achieve a just, peaceful, and sustainable world. This is what we try to do. But we try to do that by creating harmony among faith communities and also by fostering their relationship with the guiding institutions. And that mission statement is essentially which is needed at this moment. So I will go through some slides. Islamophobia, people have dislike and like of this and thing, but Islamophobia is not a product of ignorance about Islam necessarily, but there is a whole $160 million hate network which is behind that. So on the left side of the screen you can see, and this is not my research, I have borrowed this from Society of American for National Existence and Jihad Watch and Act for America, and these organizations at the bottom left is Steve Emerson, Daniel Pipe, and David Yerushalmi, who is a lawyer for this lady Pamela Geller. All these people are well connected, and unfortunately, these big preachers, Franklin Graham giving bad name to his father, and all these people use pulpit to essentially create confusion and hate and persisting and promoting stereotypical images of the other. What interfaith movement does, on the other hand, we believe in loving relationship and we develop those connections, and that's what Parliament of the World's Religions did in Salt Lake City this October so successfully. Islamophobia has organizations. These organizations are well established, well funded, and it is their submission to IRS where those $160 million numbers come from. And of course, they have a huge media. Now, media is a guiding institution. It can guide towards good and it can create confusion. Americans normally know negative role of the media, and that's why when American institutions, Gallup and other polling agencies survey America, media unfortunately, but probably rightfully ranks at the lowest level. I think it's the bottom of the 10, second from the bottom. But some media especially is there. Fox Television, for example, in 5-6 cases, people who have attacked mosques or injured people, they have been asked by the judge, and their source of information was Fox Television. It has been directly implicated in that. But we need to understand the whole fear and hate machine which is going on for a while in our country. It has many variables, but the main thing is in the center that war, terror, and hate are connected phenomena. It's not easy for human beings to kill other human beings. So terrorists dehumanize their neighbors. That's what warmongers also do. They dehumanize their neighbors, and that's where hate comes into being. Hate towards Muslim in this country, or hate in the world towards Christian neighbors. But around that, graph which I'm giving at the top is fear of the demographic shift. Minorities, according to our census, are going to be majority by 2043. And that is driving a whole lot of hate. Heard of that? All Mexicans are rapists or all Muslims are terrorists? A bill which a presidential candidate who is also a senator is pushing right now in the Senate, it says that all foreign students must be expelled as soon as they graduate from the university. I'm worried that a whole lot of people now will be failing, so they don't get expelled. But what you're going to do, the leading technology, which still gives edge to America over the other people, is situated in Silicon Valley. You go in Silicon Valley and you'll find 60% of the people, engineers and the founders who are Americans, actually were not born in America. These are immigrants who were students, became immigrant, became American citizen, and they are leading America forward. So if you ban all those students, what's going to happen to not only universities, but also professors and those people will flee, and instead of, there are close to 100,000 Chinese who study here. Good number of them don't go back. There are close to 100,000 Indians and other people, South Asian here in this country. Most of them are absorbed by silicon industry. But fear of demographic shift is driving this, fear of the other, and then economic blues. Figures just came out that a whole lot of poor white folks, lower middle class, who are supporting at this moment, some of them, a certain type of candidates and whatnot. Scholars are writing about that, and day before yesterday, I think statistics came out that 20 people, just 20 individuals, on 50% wealth of America. That's the widening income gap and wealth. And that has an impact, and some of that is driving. Also at the bottom, you see rise of the other nation. There is a thesis America is going down. But I support Fareed Zakaria's thesis, who says rise of the other, that we are not going down, but other countries following us are coming up, like China and Brazil and other countries. And so people here are all worried, and people are increasing fear because of that. New colonialism. Although America was not a major colonial power, but world doesn't quite differentiate between white folks of Europe who colonized the world and white folks of American who are friends with European. So colonialism ended about 40, 50 years ago, depending which country you're familiar with. But then people left behind were sort of colonial masters. So you have dictators and kings who were installed by colonial powers, and their masses who were looking for freedom, justice, and democracy. They simply hate them. They consider them the Western stooges. And when they couldn't change them through democratic means, just like what happened in Egypt, just like what happened in Syria, just like what happened in many, many other countries in the aftermath of Arab Spring, people say, oh, who is funding them? Who is giving them arms? Who is providing them billions of dollars? And they figure out the countries which are supported by the West or directly by the West. So that creates a light of hope. I will not take more time on it, but fear and hate machine, unfortunately, is there, and it is overall giving rise to fear and hate. Armed militias, according to Time magazines, have doubled. And now, because of rhetoric in last 2-3 months in our mainstream media, they are getting a field. They are having a field day. A lot of recruitment to these people. A number of active hate groups are all-time high. People are buying more guns. About 10 years ago, 1 million people used to buy a gun per year. Now 25 million, which are officially after sanction by FBI, are buying guns. Now there are 300 million guns in our country in civilian hand. Anti-immigrant laws every year. So in 1 year, I counted 353 laws and resolutions were passed in general against immigrants, mainly aimed at Latinos. President Obama received 400% more death threats than President Bush. The reason I'm presenting all of that for us to realize is a bigger phenomena. It's not tied just with election season. Election season is enhancing it. It's not tied with San Bernardino or Paris attack that only increases that. But this is a bigger phenomena, an interfaith movement. While you have holiday time with the family and all that, all we're doing with my family, I encourage you to discuss with your family and loved one as that how do we deal with it in the long-term basis. So 32 states have 110 anti-Muslim bills presented just by one person who's a lawyer, David Yerushalmi, who is a lawyer for Pamela Geller. And just one person with so much hate could do so much. And these laws are presented every year almost. In 10 states they have passed, but every year it says mini campaign against Muslims which goes on. In last 6 years, 163 mosques have been attacked. Masjid is a word for mosque which Muslims use. We say masjid, and normally people use mosques. In 5 years, there were 100 attacks just this year. 2015, there are 63 attacks on mosques, and this was one of the mosques which was burned down. So now it is becoming a mainstream, something no one has said after Hitler in Germany banned Muslims, registered them, issued special IDs, detained Muslims. When I was visiting a concentration camp close to Berlin, and I wonder why, how so many good people allow that to happen. Fact of the matter is, poll after poll says the majority of the people actually didn't support Hitler, but a good number were bystanders, and they were not doing anything when demonization was taking place. So if you move from concentration camp to Holocaust Museum, you see there are several years of demonization of Jews before actually those things were done. So these people are popularizing things which have not been said since Nazi Germany. So main victim of Islamophobia essentially is America. London has replaced New York as the financial capital of the world, and when I try to help, State Department during the days of Condoleezza Rice, they had difficulty understanding. First, I was the only brown person sitting there. At the top of it, a Muslim of a color, and they say, why? And I try to tell them we are becoming unwelcoming. If investors cannot come freely to our country, why will they bring their capital? At the same time, London changed their financial laws 3 times, and 3,000 bank branches were offering opportunities for people to spend. And that's the reason I predicted that London is going to replace New York as the financial capital of the world. It didn't happen at that time, but 3 years from that, it happened. Impact on Muslim youth is substantial. CNN has this news item, that crisis text line, which is a very innovative thing, and I request all of you to popularize in your communities. They receive 11 million text messages in last 2 years. They have said in last 2 months, they have 660% increase in bullying of Muslim teens who have contacted them. It serves as a suicide line, anti-bully line, anxiety line, and this is just 2 months. 7%, according to Columbia University research, Muslim youth in New York public school system are personally beaten up. The impact on Muslim income, Muslim are least employed as compared to any other faith community, according to Gallup poll. Wages of Muslims are down by 10%, according to Columbia University. Now, all this hate and the phenomena, will it continue? It is very important for us to understand so we can prepare for the long term. Interfaith is good in loving relationship. We are people of goodness. We are nice people who care for each other. But all the passion which we have need to be translated into proper strategies. And now I will turn into what 9 or 10 strategies I can specifically suggest. But first need to understand that, unfortunately, in my assessment, this phenomena will continue. And these are the reasons. Because it's an organized hate machine. Number 2, if war terrorism connection will continue, so terrorists will do terrorism, and we will bomb and use drones and whatnot indiscriminately. As a result, more terrorists. This cycle is going on for 15 years. 5 countries have been destroyed by bombing and whatnot, but this cycle has not broken. If this will continue, then terrorists and warmongers will keep demonizing the other. Fear of diversity in America is changing, and there is no stopping it. We can consider this diversity to be asset, or we consider that these people are suspect. So fear of diversity, as long as this diversity doesn't settle down, it will continue. And Muslims are doing things which you and I are doing. They're busy, they're doing their job, earning their living, enjoying their families. And they are not necessarily taking the whole burden of coming up with another life, another job as a volunteer to fully engage with the society. And that is one reason which is, I suspect, this hate will continue. Similarly, economic decline, rise of the other will contribute. So here are the strategies. I'll share 10 strategies, 1 minute or so each, so we have some time for question and answers at the end. First strategy. You cannot fight a hate unless it has a name. Just imagine how you're going to fight anti-Semitism if you cannot name it. So Islamophobia is the name. I did not select it, but this is the name everyone is using, so I started using it as well. There is a psychological theory, it's called anchoring point. Since people know what hate towards African American is, what racism is, since people know what anti-Semitism is, people will understand when you say Islamophobia towards Muslim is the same thing as anti-Semitism towards Jews. Strategy number 2, develop a plan for 2016. I have been to many interfaith organizations, I have talked to many, made presentations, and I'm thankful to the Parliament and all of you good people for facilitating that. One of the major things which I have noticed in interfaith movement is that interfaith movement does not develop plans. When I became chair of the Parliament of the World's Religion, I hope Parliament people will not hit me for sharing that, I asked, what is your plan? Nobody could share a plan. I called past chairs, can I have your plan? Nobody has a plan. Somebody says, I do remember hiring people developing a plan, but I couldn't get a plan. So first thing I did was do a thinking retreat of the Parliament in which all of us, stakeholder, staff, and board members, board of trustees, sit down and think through what can we do based on our individual volunteer time and based on the assets of our organization. I request all of you who are part of interfaith as an individual or part of interfaith organization or charter of compassion or trying to do anything in this regard for humanity, develop a plan for 2016. And within that plan, there should be several things which are important for us. And that's the rest of the suggestions, which I will have 7 suggestions. When people were asked, after 9/11, our neighbors are people of fairness. After 9/11, when some of the thugs came from overseas and did that tragic thing, a survey was done 2 months after that. 59%, now almost 60% people say we have no problem with Islam and Muslims. These are some criminals who did that. Now, 73% of America does not have a positive opinion of Islam and Muslim. Why? Nothing major happened in this country. So few ask those people who have negative opinion, why do they have negative opinion? And they say media. So the first important thing interfaith movement in grassroots in your cities need to adopt is strategies to relate with the media. And everything mattered. For example, an award-winning journalist, she won a national award, and she happened to interview me, spent a day with me a long time ago, 15 years ago, and wrote a beautiful story 15, 16, 17 years ago, before 9/11. She got fired. So I took her out for lunch, and I said, what happened? She was bureau chief of religion for Dallas Morning News, but that's not where she got fired. So what happened? He said, the thing is that when I write good stories which are needed for humanity, all those good human beings don't write to our paper. All I get is hate mongers writing. So hundreds of letters criticizing her will come, and media is a business. Bosses will sell she's a trouble, get rid of her. That's how she had to move from paper to the paper to the paper. Finally, she just retooled her skill set and found something else to do. That's an award-winning journalist in this country. So letter to the editors are most read things. Same thing is when you call about a particular report. When a lot of people call when somebody is racist towards African American, that anchor loses job within a day or two, immediately suspended. Same thing happen when they have some slur towards Jews or homosexuals or anybody. But when it comes to Muslims, that thing is allowed to go on the media. All Islamophobes are on the on the mainstream media. So calling and connecting, saying what is good and what is bad is individuals can do. Media also gives importance to organization. So interfaith group as an organization need to go and as an organization request a meeting with the editorial board. And I have done that and I have found an amazing things. Third thing I would say, Muslims going is important, but Muslims have been depositioned in the society substantially in terms of power positioning, despite of the fact that there are more than 40,000 Muslim physicians who save lives on the daily basis, but you don't see them on the media or and all that. I am, Molly just mentioned, I have been selected at 500 most influential Muslims in the world for 5 times in the row. But last 1 year, maybe 2-3 media people contacted me. That's all. So media doesn't connect with Muslims. So State Department advised me, Malik, on another cause, it will be better if you take an interfaith delegation. That will make the difference. It was in some other areas, but that advice applies. So I think interfaith need to connect with the guiding institution. So good feeling, good ideas of interfaith becomes mainstream. Media is run by human beings. You touch as a human being and they will improve. And I have plenty of examples to say. So this is the number one thing I like you to adopt in your plans for the next year. This is an example. This was a map developed by Washington Post based on a website which says shootingtracker.com. They have all the mass shooting there. This is the mass shootings took place in 2015. And red dot is something which I put on it. Red dots are 3 dots. That's where the Muslims mass shooters were involved. Rest of the blue shots are all involved by extreme right-wingers or some other people are undetermined. But this thing has not what our neighbors know. Why? Because of the media. Media does not normally tell this story. So a research has been done for a Department of Communication which says there is a huge disproportionate coverage when any Muslim is a criminal as compared to when a person of other faith is a criminal. Strategy number 4, we do dialogues. Interfaith loves dialogue. Most of the time we spend all our lives in dialogues, although engagement is absolutely important. So my request is enter in dialogue as well as engage in the dialogue, the champions of those who fight against hate, like LARASA, like NAACP, ACLU, Southern Poverty Law Center. They have not allocated much resources to fighting Islamophobia, which is the dominant hate. They're all good people, but overwhelm and focus on essentially their causes. Interfaith movement connecting with them, inviting them to speak, and you can invite media to speak also at your gatherings and develop the relationship and influence them. Unless they develop better program because they are accepted by the mainstream, Muslim will not be able to do it by themselves. And also at local level develop synergies between Black Lives Matter, Latinos, immigrant rights movement, the Sikh community and the Muslim community, because they all suffer in silence. Some of them are better organized than the other, and they need to move forward and work with the other entities to deal with the challenges America is facing. Challenges is, I don't frame it as Muslims are facing challenges. We are. But America is feeling challenges, and that challenge is how to liberate our country from fear, hate, and anger, which is driven by the demographic changes which will come in 2043. But that is the one main thing which is driving. Unless we liberate ourselves, unless we accept diversity is as American as apple pie, and we know the states of the world, we know languages of the world, and we will be the people needed for America to move forward when America competes with other nations for investment, for market share, and for resources. Strategy number 5, help Muslims amplify their voices against ISIS and terrorists. You must have heard the question, why Muslims don't condemn terrorism? Where are the moderate Muslims? Utter nonsense. This is a strategy which some people are using, and some people are innocently asking that. The reason being, media doesn't amplify our voices. So help Muslims achieve that. Make sure that the media places Muslim. And anytime Islamophobes come, challenge if that is not being challenged by media people or by people who can properly do that. Sound Vision, the organization I founded in a chair, has developed material for our neighbors of other faith as well as young people. Islamic response to ISIS. Does Quran really ask Muslim to kill non-Muslims? And what is in the world going on in the Muslim world? Why people are up in arms and willing to be refugees? We define that as a struggle for freedom, democracy, and Islam. And that is causing a whole lot of things, but we need to understand these things. Strategy number 6, use sermons, newsletters, and social media. The existing tools which interfaith have need to be used to fight hate. Strategy number 7, another thing I have realized is that interfaith is weak in communications. I have developed a whole lot of statistics and I intend to write an article. So when you plan for 2016 of your interfaith work, plan on expanding your communication reach, not just to like-minded people, but those people who may have difference of opinion with you, with the media people, with the social service provider, with the human rights people, with the NAACP, immigrants' rights movement, with the anti-Semitism effort people who are fighting against homophobia. We need to broaden the whole network. Strategy number 8, connect interfaith with the guiding institution. A school system is where 99% of Muslim children go, and this is where they're facing major problems. That's where 660% increase in bullying news is coming from. That's where Muslim children are committing suicide. That's where Muslim children are hanged in the bathroom. This is where the real tragic phase is coming, because children are children, they are not politically correct to hide the things which they face. And there is a real terrible situation is going on in public school system right now. And, and school boards. Interfaith delegation can go and talk to school board. They can talk to principals. They can help their children stand up with other. When my son was thrown urine and whatnot against, it were his class fellows who stood up against the bullies, because otherwise he will be just isolated. So connect with the city. In many cities, Charter of Compassion's campaign, Compassionate Cities, have done miracles. They have transformed the city. Even the cities which are Republican mayors have become on board with the Charter of Compassion. And I don't want it to be seen as a partisan Republican and Democrat thing. Republicans are saying nasty thing, Democrats are saying good thing. Forget about that. All people are human beings. Even Tea Party people, you can sit down and have a connection. Dialogue with the other is critical, but dialogue with the guiding institution is going to be important. And help Muslims, be on your board, on the interfaith board, on the other boards which you sit on. Just think, are there some Muslims on that board? Because if they're there, people will know Muslims, and Muslim will more connected with the civil society. So it's a job of Muslims as well as the good, loving neighbors of other faith. Strategy number 9, take it to the Islamophobes. Why KKK cannot have a free time on national media? Because we all define them who they are. Islamophobes, this is an organization called Fair and Accuracy in Reporting, FAIR.org. FAIR.org. They have identified dirty dozens of Islamophobia years ago, and these people come on the mainstream all the time. So it is important that they don't make tens of thousands of dollars speaking into universities. I have seen them speaking at universities. I have seen them speaking in mainline churches. I have seen them speaking in mainline reform synagogues. And I have seen them making tons of money on speaking circuits because they say things full of lies people really believe. Actually, there are fake people who say they have terrorists and now they have become, they love Jesus. And people are going around and people have proven they were never a terrorist to begin with. And the hate mongers in America like Pamela Geller and all that, this person who has this Nazi salute, in Norway he killed 78 young people, mostly Christians, and charge was they were soft on Islam. And his manifesto, he is quoting Robert Spencer, Jihad Watch, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, and other hate mongers and Pamela Gellers. So hate in America is intellectual, network, religious, and it is driving hate overseas in Europe as well. Strategy number 10 is the last one. Pray for humanity, my brothers and sisters. Because of many, many factors, it is not just us in America where hate, fear, and anger is rising. It's rising all around the world. And I write, for example, I have written what Muslims need to do during Christians in the Muslim world, protecting our Christian neighbors who are celebrating respect of the Christmas. So we're writing for those folks also who are not in this country. But prayer is absolutely important. When we make prayer, prayer is a statement of something which we deeply held important. Prayer is a statement, this is something we really want to do. When you make prayer for something, then you plan for it. So you pray for your neighbor, pray for me, and I'll pray for you, my brothers and sisters. Thank you so much for sparing your time, important time in this holiday season, to be with us on this webinar. Sorry, Molly, I took slightly more time than I was planning to. Just got excited, I guess.
Well, we all understand how tremendously much you care about Islamophobia and hatred and injustice. So I want to commend you for your excellent presentation. We've had an outpouring of questions about whether or not the recording or the slides can be accessed later, and for sure we'll absolutely send the recording of this presentation out for those who were not able to make it. But it's encouraging to know that several of our attendees want to be able to take this knowledge and share it with other people in their own communities, which is exactly what we intend to do. A couple of questions have been coming in during your speech, and one of the questions is that people are concerned to know why expressly we're discussing Islamophobia when we see reports and hear the the personal accounts of members of the Hindu community, the Sikh community, the South Asian community are also profiled as Muslims. And I want to say strongly that we definitely show solidarity and understand that the issues are common, and that our advice, number one, is to see that as an alliance, to band together and make our efforts stronger. But I wonder if, Malik, you would
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Molly, and thank you so much who asked this question. Muslims are not the victim. You see, number one victim is America, and anybody who looks like Muslim, anybody can assume. I mean, remember the case when a young man who wanted to impress his teacher in a school in Texas made a clock, and he was taken to prison. Then just few days ago, a Sikh boy in a new school, again in the same area, Dallas area, was taken from his school because he has a battery pack, and he was a Sikh kid. So Latinos, Hindus, Sikh, African American, all minorities in this era of rising hate, fear, and anger, feeling an extraordinary focus. And the advice which I have given, all 10 strategies, although from the perspective of Islamophobia, which is the main racism of our time, but it's equally applicable in all cases. And when I made a presentation in last 1 week on different imams and Muslims, And I specifically included slides which were talking about Sikhs and Hindus and people of color and Black Lives Matter movement to encourage Muslims to develop a common cause against hate. So thank you so much.
Great. So I'm going to return to a question that was posed during the earlier presentation from Larry Greenfield, and that is basically how to stay calm and cool when confronting the opportunity that presents itself when somebody expresses hatred or misinformation about a member of another faith, and the tendency that we have to become angry ourselves. How do you suggest, Larry, if you're there with us, to keep calm and respond thoughtfully in that situation?
Yeah, I'm still with you.
Great.
And give thanks to my colleague and friend Malik for this presentation. I can only speak personally here. I can't act out of instinct. I've got to act on the basis of what disciplines I develop. I think we have to develop a discipline of keeping calm, but also a discipline of exercising courage. And that takes some thinking ahead of time, of planning, as Malik has suggested, of what we are going to do, thinking ahead of time, what we're going to do in certain circumstances. That's the first thing. Become disciplined in being not just calm, but being active in a constructive way. Secondly, I'm a lot more apt to be courageous and step forward if I'm not alone. So I think it's very important that we develop collegial relationships with those who share our commitment to nonviolence, against hate, and the promotion of peace. And then third, I think it is to move beyond just interpersonal relationships to interfaith relationships. We have a voice within our particular faith communities, but that voice of faith is multiplied many times over if we can join together as faith communities, shared communities, stand against hate and for peace and love. Those would be my at least preliminary answers to that question. Discipline, cooperation, and solidarity in the interfaith movement.
Oh, thank you, Larry. That's very motivating. Imam Mujahid, are you there?
Yeah.
Excellent. This question is for you. So Peter Johansson Osisi asks you that in your presentation, you describe some of the players and institutions of the, quote, hate industry. That's where the money is. Can you identify some institutions and players that are funding the, quote, love and pluralism industry? Who might be some leaders or institutions that are on the fence and potential contributors?
Well, you have challenges, unfortunately, in this area. Philanthropy to support interfaith movement, in nutshell, doesn't exist. I have met a whole lot of foundations for the Parliament of the World's Religions. Not many of them are motivated. But here is an opportunity. February is the month, I think there is a interfaith week announced by United Nations. And somebody in Jordan has put 25,000 prize on it, that whoever has the best program, they will give that money. So there are not many organizations, but foundations need to be encouraged. So I think one part of the dialogue interfaith movement can do is to be able to convene, maybe Parliament could do or other people can do, convene the city-based philanthropic institution, not for asking for money, but to share with them that what challenges the forthcoming diversity poses for the city and how they can contribute for that. Now, there are many institutions who do fund for diversity, and these foundations might be open if you develop your plan, framing it in terms of promotion of diversity, acceptance of the other. at least in some state, in some cosmopolitan areas, there may be city foundations who might be able to do. Unfortunately, I don't have a good guidance available, but I'm writing this as a suggestion to develop further that who might be willing to fund this. So far, interfaith movement has been amazing in terms of funding through its own pockets the plans which we like to achieve.
Great, thank you so much. We have somewhat of a humorous question. I won't name the person who asked it, but they're wondering if there is room on your Dirty Dozen list to add a certain Republican candidate for president.
Well, I think we all probably have added them, and that list is developed by Fair and Accuracy in Media. So Dirty Dozen of the politician is not a bad idea, I would say. Yeah. But being politically incorrect, we know them. Other people rather have it sugar-coated. So politicians need to be challenged. Politicians on both sides of the aisle need to be challenged to do better. What are their positive plans to deal with the fear and hate which is rising in this country? I don't think, but just by switching from President Obama, hate towards the president is going to go down. I mean, hate is increasing, and the rhetoric of certain candidates have resulted in so much people wanting to join right-wing militias and all that, that some of their servers, computer servers, have broken down. This is, happening in our lifetimes. So I think we need to challenge the candidates who are not verbally hate monger to come up with their plan and what they're going to do to deal with the phenomena which the whole nation is facing.
So one particular question came in from someone who's curious to know how we encourage more Muslim Americans to take public office.
Well, I think this is something which I plan to do a special webinar for Muslim community. You see, what is happening is that all the fear industry has a huge play on Muslim community. Although 80% of the things which you can do in politics can be done by any church or synagogue and a mosque, as soon as you talk about political activism or working with the others in coalition, somebody in the board says, oh, that's politics. We're not supposed to do politics. We're going to lose our tax-exempt status. This is a talk of almost every mosque, which is utter nonsense. In the history, in the known history of IRS, only one church or religious organization has ever lost their 501c3 status, and judge actually told them it was a church in the South which has a advertisement in the newspaper, don't vote for Clinton, and at the bottom of that advertisement they ask, and send your tax deductible donation to our church. So the judge laughed, and he says that if you didn't have this asking for donation, I might have let you go, but now I'm going to really support IRS decision to revoke your not-for-profit status. So many people receive warnings, but hardly anybody loses. But whole lot of things. So one thing which Muslims need to do, I intend to do, and you can also connect me with those Muslims which you know and bring them to the webinar when I am able to offer that 80% of the things which you can do in politics and standing for this and that can be done, including something which people even don't believe. For example, you can provide your hall in your mosque or a church to a political candidate only if you are willing to provide to his opponent also. You don't need to beg the opponent, but you need to be open to. You can give your resources and your email list and all of those things to political people, as long as at the same price and the same condition you are willing to give it to others. So there are certain things which come in the gray area, but a whole lot could be done, and unfortunately people don't do that. I mean, there will be no civil rights movement if not a certain pastor of a church who stood up. Black churches led that, and mainline churches supported them. So the whole notion of civic engagement and engaging with the guardian institution and people running for the office and influencing them need to be part of liberating America from fate, fear, and anger. So no, I don't have a specific answer to you. Chairman of the Democratic Party, Governor Howard Dean, in front of 1,500 people, asked me to run for Congress. Unfortunately, I declined, but I didn't decline because I don't care. I declined because I'd rather have 10 other Muslims run and support them instead of me running all the time for myself.
Oh, wow. Well, it sounds like you're very, very comprehensive in understanding what's going on with Muslims in the public eye. I got a comment from one of our attendees that there are actually now several organizations that are doing trainings with young Muslims to encourage them to get into politics and civic service, which is wonderful, and I can't wait to see the fruits of those efforts. In terms of questions coming in, we're kind of slowing down here. We've gone well over our hour, which is amazing, and I can assure you the commentary coming through my chat box is full of gratitude. I think everybody feels extraordinarily lifted up by this conversation we had. Some of the comments I'm getting regard things, that kind of miss the point. Why aren't websites run by U.S. Muslims denouncing ISIS, which of course we covered, and that's something that we need to continue to point to, that the denouncement is there, and the organizing to lift up interfaith communities to respond to these issues is everywhere if we just continue to communicate and organize.
Can I take a minute on that, Molly?
Yes.
Okay. Just yesterday, I read an article by a Presbyterian minister from Texas. And a journalist asked him this question: how come Muslims don't denounce? That Presbyterian went to office and printed 75 pages from a website, all statement of top scholars and all the Muslim organizations condemning terrorism, and gave it to the journalist. And then he writes that journalist still did not write about Muslim condemning terrorism. You see, something a bit of the nature of the media, that condemning terrorism is not a news for them. And some, unfortunately, is a political thing on the part of Islamophobes. They saying, how come you don't condemn? For example, Bill O'Reilly asked me to come on his show, and the first thing I did was I condemned a Paris attack, on Charlie Hebdo attack. The first thing I did was that. 1 minute into the interview, he goes again, are you Imam, you gonna condemn it right now? and I said, I just did. And I said, we condemn all the time. And then I had to condemn it again. Then he calmed down and asked me some other questions. So it's a sort of a strategy. So if anyone of you have that, that you like a reference of the website, where there are websites which have compiled all the condemnations Muslims do, we can forward you that link. And second strategy is, once you have that, you print out those and keep that half of the tree in papers on next to you. That anytime they say here it is, go ahead and read that. Now there are books which have come out. I personally have written tens of articles on condemning, but condemning terrorism 6 times a day actually has become the 6th pillar of Islam, and it's unfortunately neither terrorists are listening nor our neighbors are hearing about it, because media is playing a negative role in not amplifying our voices. But I will request your help in that area, and request I have, Molly, that all those questions and comments are going to be very learning comments. So please don't quit the webinar until you are able to preserve them somehow.
Oh, absolutely. No, we have a very vibrant, active Q&A panel going through the chat. I do see one person's hand that is raised that I'm going to invite to contribute to our conversation. His name is Ted Brownstein. I think Ted Brownstein has a question. Are you with us, Ted? Oh, he's gone quiet. So for the time being, I think we're nearing a point of closing our webinar. So I need to just again issue from my heart tremendous thanks. There will be a resource kit coming out in response to all of your questions. We will continue to study them and understand how the Parliament can be of better service. We did issue 6 declarations at the 2015 Parliament. One of those focused on hate, violence, hate speech, and I encourage you to read it. It's on our website under the 2015 Parliament in the Declarations section. That is another resource that you can use not only for yourself but to share and build community around standing up on these issues. Also, we're very active in social media. We have a very active community on Facebook. Just search Parliament of the World's Religions. And you can tweet to us on Twitter at Interfaith World. We're going to wish those of you celebrating Christmas the happiest of holidays. Merry Christmas. Peace be with you. And thank you again to Imam Malik Mujahid. I think this is at least the 3rd or 4th webinar you've done for the Parliament while I've been here in the last 3 years, and your service has not gone unnoticed. You have a big fan base here participating in this webinar today. Your expertise has been tremendously beneficial for the interfaith movement, and we look forward to continuing it. You'll hear from Dr. Larry Greenfield through our emails, so please subscribe to our newsletter. If you have not yet done so, through a pop-up box that comes up on our website, parliamentofreligions.org. And again, my name is Molly Horan. I'm our communications director. I can be reached at molly@parliamentofreligions.org. That's MOLLY. I again issue my thanks. Wish you all the best for 2016. I look forward to your comments and wish you a great new year. Thank you again.